Imagine a world without shape, without light, without meaning, just an endless, swirling darkness where nothing makes sense. A place where chaos reigns and the very fabric of existence is unstable. This is how the Bible describes the beginning. A formless void, a cosmic emptiness waiting for something or someone to bring order out of the madness. But how does order emerge from chaos? And what does that tell us about life, about ourselves, and about the divine? In this journey through Genesis chapter 1, we're diving deep into one of the most profound mysteries of creation. The ancient text doesn't just describe how the world was made, it reveals a battle between chaos and order, a struggle that still plays out in our lives today. Think about it. Every day we face our own chaos, uncertainty, fear, confusion, and yet we long for structure, for meaning, for something to hold on to. Genesis 1 isn't just an origin story, it's a mirror reflecting our deepest struggles and hopes. The chapter opens with a striking image. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. No sun, no stars, no land, just an abyss of nothingness. But then something extraordinary happens. A voice speaks into the darkness. "Let there be light." And with those words, everything changes. The chaos doesn't disappear, but now there's a force shaping it, guiding it, turning disorder into something beautiful. Who or what is this force, and why does it choose to create in this way? As we unpack these verses, we'll explore timeless questions. Why does creation start with darkness? What does it mean that God separates light from darkness, waters from waters, day from night? Separation seems to be the key, drawing boundaries, defining spaces, making distinctions. But why? Is chaos the enemy, or is it the raw material for something greater? Here's where it gets even more fascinating. Ancient cultures, Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, all had their own creation myths, many featuring gods battling monsters of chaos. But Genesis is different. There's no fight, no war. Instead, there's authority, a command, a word that brings reality into being. What does that say about the nature of God, about the power of words, about our own ability to shape the chaos in our lives? But before we go further, there's a twist, something hidden in the text that most people miss. The word mirashi tohu vavohu, without form and void, appears only one other time in the Bible, in a prophecy of judgment. Is Genesis 1 not just a story of creation, but also a warning, a hint that chaos can return if order is abandoned? The stakes are higher than we realize, because if the world was once chaos and order was imposed by divine will, what happens when we forget that order? When we ignore the boundaries, the separations, the distinctions that hold reality together? The answer might just change how you see everything, your life, your choices, even the world around you. But we're just scratching the surface. In the next part, we'll uncover the hidden patterns in the days of creation, the surprising meaning behind the firmament, and the moment when chaos almost fights back. Because the story isn't over yet, and the battle between order and disorder is far more intense than you think. Stay tuned. To truly understand the weight of Genesis 1, we have to step back, way back into the ancient world, where creation stories weren't just myths, but explanations for why things are the way they are. The Babylonians had the Enuma Elish, where the god Marduk slays the chaos monster Tiamat and carves her body into the heavens and earth. The Egyptians believed the sun god Ra emerged from the dark waters of Nun, speaking order into existence. But here's what sets Genesis apart. There's no battle, no struggle, no cosmic war between gods and monsters. Instead, there's a voice, calm, deliberate, unstoppable, that simply declares, "Let there be." And there is. Why does that matter? Because it tells us something radical about the nature of reality. Chaos isn't some rival god that has to be defeated. It's raw material, waiting to be shaped. And that changes everything. Think about your own life. When everything feels like it's falling apart, is the chaos an enemy? Or is it an opportunity? A blank slate? Maybe the darkness isn't there to destroy you. Maybe it's there because something new is about to be born. But here's where it gets even more mysterious. The Hebrew word for Dopar, deepest in Genesis 1:2, is tehom, a word that echoes Tiamat, the Babylonian chaos dragon. Was the biblical author subtly saying, your gods are just monsters, but our God, he doesn't fight chaos, he commands it. If that's true, then this isn't just a creation story. It's a declaration of divine authority, a statement so bold that it would have shocked the ancient world. And then there's the firmament, that strange vault-like barrier separating the waters above from the waters below. Ancient people believed the sky was a solid dome holding back a celestial ocean. But the Bible doesn't just describe it, it makes it a key part of creation. Why? Because boundaries matter. Separation isn't about restriction, it's about definition. Without it, everything collapses back into chaos. Which raises a terrifying question. What happens when those boundaries break? When the firmament cracks? The Bible gives us glimpses. The flood, the Tower of Babel, even the plagues of Egypt, moments when the ordered world trembles and chaos threatens to return. Is that why Genesis 1 feels so urgent? Not just as a story of the past, but as a warning for the future? We're standing at the edge of something profound. Because if creation began with a word, then words have power. If order was spoken into chaos, then maybe, just maybe, we're not as helpless as we think. But how far does that power go? And what happens when humans try to wield it? That's where the story takes a turn no one sees coming. Now let's follow that thread. What happens when humans try to play God? Because right after Genesis 1 gives us this majestic vision of divine order, Genesis 3 shows everything unraveling. The serpent slithers in, not with brute force, but with a question. Did God really say? And just like that, the boundaries start to blur. The forbidden fruit isn't just about disobedience. It's about humans reaching for the power to define good and evil themselves, to erase the lines, to become the architects of their own reality. Sound familiar? Look around. Every time humanity declares, we don't need boundaries, we don't need rules, we'll make our own truth, chaos follows, not because God's punishing us, but because we're literally dismantling the architecture of creation. The Tower of Babel isn't just a story about language. It's about humans trying to storm heaven, to force their way into the divine. And what happens? Confusion, scattering. The very unity they sought collapses under the weight of their pride. But here's the twist. Chaos isn't always the villain. In the Psalms, God rides the storm clouds. Job faces the Leviathan, the embodiment of chaos, and God doesn't destroy it. He boasts about its power. Even in Exodus, God splits the Red Sea, the primordial waters of chaos, to make a path for his people. So is chaos also God's tool, a force he harnesses? Then why does Genesis 1 show him taming it? The tension is mounting, because if God doesn't eradicate chaos but instead masters it, what does that mean for us? Are we supposed to fight our chaos, or learn to navigate it, to command it? The answer might lie in the most unexpected place, the silence between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. That breathless pause before creation begins, where anything could have happened. But we'll need to go deeper to uncover what that means, and deeper is where things get dangerous. Now we arrive at the heart of the mystery, that eerie silence between in the beginning and let there be light. Ancient rabbis called it the tohu vavohu, the primordial chaos before God spoke. But was it truly empty? Some ancient texts whisper of things lurking in that void, formless shadows, half-made creatures, a universe holding its breath before the divine command. What if that darkness wasn't just absence, but potential? A cosmic womb pregnant with possibilities both glorious and terrifying. This changes everything, because if chaos contains unseen forces waiting to be shaped, then every moment of disorder in your life, every crisis, every heartbreak, every shattered plan, isn't just destruction, it's raw material. The same power that hovered over the waters in Genesis 1 still moves in our chaos today. But here's where it gets chilling. When humans try to harness that power without wisdom, we don't create, we corrupt. The flood story shows us what happens when the windows of heaven break open and the boundaries dissolve. The waters above crash through the firmament, and suddenly we're back to the formless void. Can you feel the tension building? The same voice that said, "Let there be light," also told the waters, "This far you may come, but no farther." Yet humanity keeps testing those boundaries with technology, with ideologies, with our relentless hunger to remake the world in our image. The Tower of Babel wasn't destroyed by God. It collapsed under the weight of its own ambition. And that's the cliffhanger we're left with as our modern world builds its own towers, pushes against every limit. Who's to say we're not standing on another precipice? The next move could bring either revelation or ruin. The choice is coming. The storm is gathering. And in the silence before the thunder, you can almost hear it, the whisper of the deep, waiting to see what we'll do next. But here's what no one tells you about chaos. It remembers. Those ancient waters that God pushed back on the second day, they never stop pressing against the boundaries. You can hear it in the Psalms, where the sea lifts up its voice, where Leviathan lurks in the deep. The Bible isn't just describing creation, it's warning us that chaos is patient. It waits. And right now, in our world of crumbling institutions, eroding truths, and endless noise, can't you feel it? The cracks in the firmament are widening. Now comes the twist. The same Hebrew word used for the Spirit of God hovering over the waters in Genesis 1, Mereshephet, appears only one other time in Scripture, in Deuteronomy, where God is compared to an eagle hovering over its young. But eagles don't just protect, they push their chicks out of the nest. What if God's Spirit hovering over the void wasn't just about to create, but about to test, to see what would emerge from the chaos? That changes everything, because it means the darkness in your life, the uncertainty, the suffering, might not be something God is fixing. It might be something He's waiting for you to face. The stakes just got higher. Ancient Jewish mystics taught that before our world, God created and destroyed other universes, shattered vessels that couldn't contain His light. The fragments fell into the void, and now they're embedded in our reality. Every act of evil, every moment of suffering, those are sparks of divine light trapped in the wreckage of those fallen worlds. Your darkest battles aren't just random chaos. They're a cosmic rescue mission. Every time you choose courage over fear, truth over lies, love over hate, you're not just surviving, you're rebuilding creation. But there's a terrifying flip side. The book of Enoch, quoted by Jude in the New Testament, describes rebel angels who crossed boundaries God never intended them to cross, teaching humans forbidden knowledge, distorting creation itself. Their legacy? The giants of old, the corruption that brought the flood. And here's the chilling part. We're doing it again. With AI rewriting reality, bioengineering playing God, and digital worlds replacing the tangible one, we're not just facing chaos, we're becoming the chaos. The same choice stands before us that stood before Adam at the tree. Will we accept the limits of being human, or will we reach for divinity, and in reaching lose ourselves completely? The waters are rising, the old boundaries are breaking, and somewhere in the silence, the same voice that spoke light into darkness is waiting to see what we'll do next. Will we rebuild the firmament, or watch it shatter for good? The answer is coming, but not yet. Not until we face what's been lurking in the deep all along. The moment of truth arrives not with a roar, but with a whisper, the same quiet voice that once spoke light into the void. As the chaos of our world reaches its fever pitch, the collapsing systems, the moral confusion, the desperate scramble to play God, something unexpected happens. The waters don't break through, the firmament holds. Because all this time, we've misunderstood the real battle. Chaos was never the enemy. It was the proving ground. The test wasn't about destroying the darkness, but learning to navigate it. Just as God separated light from darkness on the first day, the climax reveals we were never meant to eliminate the chaos, but to master it, to become the kind of beings who can walk through the valley of shadows without becoming shadows ourselves. Here's the twist we never saw coming. The tree of knowledge wasn't forbidden because its fruit was poison. It was forbidden because we weren't ready. Like children grabbing at a live wire, we reach for wisdom without the maturity to handle it. But now, after millennia of stumbling through the consequences, something extraordinary is happening. The same technology we feared would break the world, the AI, the genetic engineering, the virtual realities, is becoming the very tool God seems to be using to finally make us ready. Not by letting us become gods, but by forcing us to confront what we really are. Every ethical dilemma in biotechnology, every haunting question about artificial consciousness, every crisis of meaning in our digital age, they're not signs of the end. They're birth pains. The resolution crashes over us like a wave. The forbidden fruit is being offered again. But this time, we're being asked a different question. Not, do you want to be like God? But now that you've tasted both good and evil, what will you create? The Leviathan isn't slain. It's harnessed. The chaos isn't erased. It's redeemed. And in this breathtaking moment, we realize the entire human story has been one long second day of creation. God hovering over our chaos, waiting for us to grow up enough to partner in the work of ordering the world. But just when we think we've reached the end, the final twist leaves us reeling. The book of Revelation's vision of a new heaven and new earth. It isn't about God scrapping this creation and starting over. It's about Him finally getting what He wanted all along, a humanity that has wrestled with chaos and emerged not as victims, but as co-creators. The serpent's curse is overturned not by divine fiat, but through human beings who've learned to speak God's words after Him. Let there be light in the darkest places. The story doesn't end with us returning to Eden. It ends with us building something greater, carrying the scars of our long battle with chaos as badges of hard-won wisdom. The waters are still there. The darkness still lingers at the edges. But now we know. They were never the enemy. They were the raw materials of our becoming. And the voice that first spoke over them, it's whispering again. But this time, it's waiting to see if we'll answer. And so we stand at the edge of a new beginning, not back in the garden, but forward in a world that's been forged through the fire of our choices. The chaos hasn't disappeared. It never will. But now we see it for what it truly is, the canvas on which we paint our humanity. Every act of courage, every moment of compassion, every hard-won truth is a brushstroke bringing order out of the void, just as God did in the beginning. The takeaway isn't some neat religious formula. It's the raw, beautiful truth that we've been entrusted with something terrifying and glorious. The same creative power that spoke galaxies into existence now lives in our words, our actions, our willingness to face the darkness without flinching. The unresolved questions find their answers not in explanations, but in lived experience. Why did God allow the snake in Eden? Because real love requires real choice. Why does chaos still swirl around us? Because we're not meant to live in a padded world, but to grow strong enough to dance on the waves like the psalmist's God, who tramples the waves of the sea. The subplots of human history, our wars, our breakthroughs, our art and science and stumbling attempts at justice, all converge into one startling realization. We weren't created to be passive observers of divine order, but active participants in its unfolding. As the camera pulls back on our story, the final image isn't of a perfect world, but of an unfinished one, brimming with both danger and promise. The key words that got us here, creation, chaos, Genesis, divine order, take on new meaning. They're not just theological concepts anymore. They're the living texture of our daily lives. That argument with your spouse? That's chaos being shaped into deeper love. That career setback? That's the waters parting to show you a new path. The anxiety about tomorrow? That's the Spirit hovering over your personal void, waiting for you to speak your first creative word into it. We end where we began, with darkness and light, waters and firmament, the unformed potential of everything yet to be. But now we know the secret. The story was never just about how the world was made. It's about how we're still making it. Every morning when you open your eyes to a new day, you're standing where God stood in Genesis 1, facing the chaos within and around you with the same invitation, let there be light. The ending isn't written yet because it's yours to write. And somewhere in the silence, the voice is smiling, whispering just one thing: go on. Create.